Good morning. I'm Chris Jansing. Well, now it's the Democrats' turn to take the stage. The party gets started in Charlotte tomorrow for the Democratic National Convention. And if the campaign trail this weekend was a preview, the president says the GOP is stuck in the past.
It was a rerun. It could have been on Nick at Night. We've seen it before. You might as well have watched it on a black and white TV with some rabbit ears. Those ideas don't work. They didn't work then. They won't work now.
Well, Republicans have tried to push the narrative that people are disappointed in this president after the hope and change he promised 4 years ago. And there is a central question Democrats will have to face.
But yes or no, are Americans better off today than they were 4 years ago?
Listen, George, they did a good job of reciting all the statistics everyone's familiar with.
You still can't say yes.
Well, we've clearly improved, George.
David, can you honestly say that the average American is better off today than they were 4 years ago?
Here's what I can say, Chris. I can say that we're in a better position than we were 4 years ago.
Can you honestly say that people are better off today than they were 4 years ago? No, but that's not the question of this election.
Ryan Grimm is the Washington bureau chief for the Huffington Post, and April Ryan is the Washington bureau chief for American Urban Radio. Good to see both of you. April, it seemed like some of those folks were having a little trouble answering the question. Is that the central question that the president is going to be facing as he heads down south?
You know, that is the question. And I ran into Kwesi Mfume, the former head of the NAACP, also former Maryland congressman who happens to be on the platform committee for this DNC convention. And that platform committee works on agenda items, issues for this convention. And he said definitely issues of poverty really are going to play into this convention speech from the president. And he said not only the issues of poverty, but specifics and distinct specifics about how to move forward with that, because this issue of economy, recession, and trying to help the middle class, which the president's poll numbers are directly linked to, are really, really crucial as the numbers are so tight between President Obama and Mitt Romney.
So is it a different equation, do you think, Ryan, for the president than it was for Mitt Romney? Mitt Romney essentially had to introduce himself. The president says there's going to be a lot more detail, that it's going to have a little more policy than maybe we might have seen in some other convention speeches. Does he have to do that?
Sure. I think he does. I mean, the entire question is tough to answer for them because, of course, most people are not better off. But on the other hand, it's also a partly silly question because it's like saying, hey, were you better off at the peak of the housing bubble than you were after it crashed? It's like telling somebody with a terrible hangover, like, hey, you were way better off last night when you were at the bar. I saw you there. You were great. And so the guy thinks, hey, yeah, you're right. Maybe I should just go back to the bar. And that's sort of what they're trying to tell voters. Like, hey, you were great when there was this bubble going on. So let's get another bubble going, and everything will be okay.
Let me play a little bit of Mitt Romney from his convention speech.
For the first time, the majority of Americans now doubt that our children will have a better future.
Well, Roger Simon kind of debunks that in his column, saying actually people have been pessimistic about the economy all the way back to Reagan and the first Bush. And if you look at polls, it proves that. So, April, how do the Democrats point that out? Or do they have to keep using the line, remember President Bush?
Well, they can only use the line of remember President Bush but so much, because at a certain point, this president has to own his responsibility with this economy. But you have to remember that this president, this administration, and this campaign will say that if, and we're going back to what happened this weekend, if what a lot of the surrogates were saying, if indeed we had not done the things that we implemented, like the auto bailout, things of that nature, they helped Michigan, they helped the state of Michigan, the auto dealers, the auto manufacturers domestically. They've done so much, extending unemployment, things of that nature. They said if we had not done the things that we've done, this economy would have been worse than what it is. And that's what they're trying to point out. And again, that's what goes back to the speech and trying to deal with issues of those who are having a hard time with this economy that are still falling through the cracks.
I also want to play for you a new Obama campaign ad that speaks to the middle class. Take a look.
The middle class is carrying a heavy load in America, but Mitt Romney doesn't see it. Under the Romney plan, a middle-class family will pay an average of up to $2,000 more a year in taxes, while at the same time giving multimillionaires like himself a $250,000 tax cut.
I wonder, Ryan, how much of that kind of stuff we're going to hear, and will we hear it from the president? Will he say Mitt Romney in his speech, and if so, how much?
I think that he'll talk about Mitt Romney. How should we put this? The more that the president has gotten to know Mitt Romney, the less he has liked him. And so, there's certainly going to be an impulse that he's going to want to talk about Mitt Romney. Now, the political advisors might say it's not worth going there, and we should just talk about our forward-looking agenda. But when it comes to stuff like that, they're certainly going to want to bring it up because, as the Tax Policy Center has said, in order to give the tax cut to the wealthy that Mitt Romney wants to, you have to raise taxes on the middle class. And if he can make that idea penetrate with people, that look, this guy is going to raise your taxes in order to give a break to the wealthy, then people are going to say, well, you know what, the economy is not so great, but I don't exactly want a friend of the rich who's going to raise my taxes. I think that's the best that the president can do this week.
April, do you agree?
Well, one thing this president is good about is not necessarily always mentioning the name of his opponent. And this president has tried before to take the high road. And again, I think the specifics and details will outweigh more so Mitt Romney. Like in Tampa, all we kept hearing, and it was shocking to me, really, Barack Obama. It wasn't, we heard a little bit of information, but it was clear. They wanted to make sure you understood Barack Obama was the problem. And I think going into this speech and all of these speeches, it's going to be more so about moving forward and helping people more so than focusing in on the opponent and using his name so they don't have to talk about him, so they can keep their little bit of an edge in some states that he has.
All right, Ryan and April, stay with me. I want to bring in now Delaware Governor Jack Markell. Good to see you, Governor. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let me ask you the question of the day. Are people better off now than they were 4 years ago?
Of course they are. I mean, let's take a look. I mean, 4 years ago, we were losing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs every single month. Now we're gaining 29 straight months, over 4 million jobs. We need to do better. The president's the first person to say we need to do better. So for me, this convention is an opportunity, A, to show the progress that we've made under very difficult circumstances, and B, make sure people understand that there's an incredible difference in approach between the two candidates.
When you say we need to do better, does that by its very nature make it sound like it's a very qualified yes? And is that why somebody like Martin O'Malley said no?
Here, I mean, the fact is, as I say, 29 straight months of job growth, over 4 million jobs created. That being said, at the end of the Bush administration, for the first few months of the new administration, 700,000 jobs a month we were losing. I mean, that's obviously stemming from what happened before. We've got lots of progress to make, and my view is that the president, as long as there are people in this country who want to work and who aren't working, he knows we've got more to do. We have to continue to improve the economy, put people to work, and he's also the first one to understand government doesn't create the jobs. What government can do and must do is to create a nurturing environment where private sector employers want to put more people to work, and that's exactly what he's focused on. And I think that's the real opportunity for this week for the president and for our party, is to make sure people understand the specifics, since they were absolutely absent in last week's convention.
One of the big issues that the Republicans have framed in terms of small business is health care. And the president yesterday in Colorado said health care is here to stay. Let me play you that clip, Governor.
He calls it Obamacare, and, I like the name. I do care. I don't know exactly what the other side's proposing. I guess you could call it Romney doesn't care.
You're a former businessman. I talked to a couple small businessmen over the weekend, and they say that what they called Obamacare was an absolute killer. How worried are you about that perception that it's getting through, and is it true?
Well, let's remember where we were 4 years ago. When I was campaigning for governor 4 years ago, the same time the president was running, the number one issue I heard about was health care and how the status quo was unacceptable. Small businesses having difficulty paying for their health care, their increasing health care rates, people having difficulty getting access. The president is tackling this head on. And so I think this is going to be very good because
But to the small business owner who says, this is something that my business cannot tolerate, I cannot afford this health care law. What do you say to them?
I will say to them, remember 4 years ago when you were saying you could not afford the status quo? I mean, that's really the key difference here. And the president, unlike the other side, the president has actually introduced a number of proposals through his legislation that will tackle the issue of cost. And I think that's one of the big things that we're going to see. We've got to continue to move away from what has become a sick care system where providers get paid based on how many procedures they do toward a health care system where providers get paid based on keeping people healthy. And the president's bill actually addresses that.
Governor Markell, it's good to see you. Have a good convention. Thank you so much. Let me bring April and Ryan back in, and I want to play something from, there was a lot of conversation about how Clint Eastwood dominated so much of the post-Republican convention conversation, but listen to what Newt Gingrich had to say.
And I think the biggest event next week won't be his speech Thursday. It'll be the Friday morning jobs report. And if that Friday morning jobs report is bad, it will drown his speech. They want to talk about Eastwood? Friday morning jobs report is a lot bigger event next week than Clint Eastwood was last week.
Ryan, is he right? Is it just bad luck that the jobs report is coming out right after his speech? Or maybe good luck? We'll see what the numbers say.
Yeah, I think he's exactly right. I think we spent an awful amount of time and energy covering this election. The campaigns raised millions in order to wage this fight over almost a 2-year period. But I think Gingrich is basically right that it's ultimately going to come down to jobs. If the economy stabilizes or improves over the next several months, Obama wins. If it tanks, Obama loses. And everything else, welfare ads, Todd Aiken, none of it is going to matter in the face of the economy.
April, he's going to have to deal with this again November 2nd, 4 days before the election. Ultimately, for all the conversations that we've had in between, are we really in November where we were when we were first talking about this in January and even last year, that ultimately it's going to be about the numbers, it's going to be about the unemployment rate and how people feel about the economy?
We're at a crucial step and a crucial time. Everything counts for each candidate between now and Election Day. And the economy is major. And as Newt Gingrich said, Friday is the day that the new jobs numbers come out. Every time we hear the job numbers, if they have moved upward or downward, there's a big hullabaloo about it because this economy is in the grips of trying to come out of a recession. I mean, for those who are still jobless, they are concerned about this. And this president talked about hope and change. And that's what people remember. And the question is, Mitt Romney is a new person on the block. Yes, he ran a company. He was a business owner. But at the same time, you still need government to do regulation and policy. So it kind of works hand in hand. But which one will you pick? So it's all about the relativity of politics to you. How is it affecting me? Am I doing better? Am I doing worse? Am I okay? Can I survive? I mean, it's what affects a person personally. I think that's what's going to happen. And again, we have a long way to go between now and November because anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Including those two jobs reports. April, Ryan Grimm, thanks to both of you.
Thank you.